Julia Child's cooking, as down-to-earth and unpretentious as she is still seen as synonymous with haute cuisine and seldom mentioned in the same breath as fast food. Ironically, one of her most famous recipes purportedly takes just 14 seconds to prepare.
This method is a very, very simple one, and once you know how to do it, you can go right out and make an omelet immediately.
If you want to make the perfect 14-second omelet, you might need to crack a few dozen eggs, since omelet mistakes are surprisingly easy to make. For each omelet, heat a tablespoon of butter until it foams. Have 2 eggs all set to go, whisked together with salt and pepper. As the butter stops foaming, pour in the eggs and shake the pan to spread them over the bottom. Once the eggs have formed a solid layer, jerk the pan towards you several times to allow the eggs to fold in on themselves until they're all rolled up. Should your eggs assume the proper position, toss them so that they're on the right side of the pan, and then roll them onto a plate and arrange them nicely for their Instagram close-up. Although Julia Child has been gone for quite a few years now, she lives on forever in the hearts of foodies, as well as in their blog posts and YouTube videos. Child has even been the co-subject of the 2009 movie Julie and Julia and the 2005 memoir it's based on, which told the true-ish story of a food writer who was inspired to devote a year of her life to recreating every one of the recipes in her iconic cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. More recently, another food writer was moved to spend somewhat less time, an entire 14 seconds to be exact, making Child's classic French omelet, a dish so simple that it can go from pan to plate in under a quarter of a minute. Instead of blogging about her omelet efforts, New York Times food editor Emily Fleischacker did something very 20-teens by posting about it on Instagram and turning it into a challenge. She first shared a video clip of Julia Child making this omelet, then showed her own efforts and tagged 15 of her friends to follow suit. Not too many of the comments on her post were from anyone saying they'd cooked this omelet successfully, but the challenge nevertheless went viral back in the early days of the 2020 lockdown. If you still haven't mastered the art of making a perfect omelet in 14 seconds, don't feel too bad about it, as even the mistress of French cooking may have needed an extra few seconds from time to time. Back in May of 1980, Julia Child appeared on Good Morning America to show the host how to make her magical omelet. He remarked upon how quickly she makes it, and she replied,
"It only takes 20 seconds.
It did, however, take her just about 14 seconds when she covered it on her own cooking show. Child also told Good Morning America viewers that speedy omelet making requires the proper pan. Such a pan should have a long handle, sloping sides, a depth of about 2 inches, and a non-stick coating. As for the diameter, Child got very specific with this, advising that the pan should measure 10 inches across the top and 7.5 across the bottom. When it comes to technique, Child explained that it's all in the shaking or jerking motion. She had the host practice with a pan full of dried beans and told him that once the beans turned over in the pan, this would mean that he'd mastered the art of the proper pan jerk. He never quite caught on and ended up literally spilling the beans, but she told him to keep practicing at home, and he assured her that he would. The French-style omelet Child demonstrated on Good Morning America is one that requires, as she called it, a certain amount of tour de main, which literally translates to turn of hand, but is a French phrase meaning knack or skill. If you're not as handy, one episode of The French Chef shows Child endorsing what she calls an equally professional method that allows the use of a utensil. In Child's slightly less challenging omelet-making method, you still shake the pan once you've poured in the eggs, but you also stir with a fork. The fork is then used to push the eggs to the side of the pan, at which point you'll perform a fork-free flip onto a waiting plate. Making this type of omelet, in case you're wondering, took Child a whopping 16 seconds. As Child noted on her show, the French typically don't eat omelets for breakfast, but instead view eggs as being more of a midday or evening thing. While such omelets may be eaten plain, they could also be made with cheese or ham if you're willing to delay your meal by a few more seconds.